Take a second and ask yourself a very simple question. When was the last time you actually paused to notice how deep down, bone tired you are? It is a quiet, constant hum of exhaustion running underneath almost everything we do. This is distinct from the physical fatigue of a long workday. You are experiencing the exhaustion of control. You are tired of forcing things, forcing a decision you aren't ready to make, forcing yourself to maintain relationships that have lost their spark, and fighting yourself to manage every single outcome in your life. We live in an invisible prison of hustle culture, constantly pressured to be productive and positive, so we force ourselves into choices driven entirely by the fear of falling behind or looking weak. We tighten our grip, trying to make our daily reality fit neatly into a rigid master plan, and the tighter we squeeze, the more that actual lived experience slips right through our fingers. When things inevitably deviate from that plan, we end up blaming ourselves. We take absolute responsibility for factors that were never actually in our control to begin with. In our burnt-out world, the prescribed solution is always to try harder. But all of this striving, this constant pushing against the clock, that is the exact source of the problem. There is an ancient, wiser way to live. To escape the fatigue and actually accomplish more, the answer lies in a completely different set of mechanics, the art of trying less. This concept comes from Taoism and Zen. It is called Wu Wei, which translates to acting without forcing, or effortless action. It means moving seamlessly with the current of life. We need to be explicitly clear here. Wu Wei is not passivity. It is not an excuse to be lazy, and it is certainly not a sign of weakness. It relies on a quiet inner stability and intelligent action, perfectly attuned to the reality of the present moment. Think about a great dancer. They don't step onto the floor and fight the music. They feel it and allow the rhythm to move them. Or consider a surfer. A skilled surfer knows they cannot battle the entire ocean. Instead, they feel the power of the wave and simply position themselves to ride it. True effectiveness comes from recognizing natural forces and aligning your actions with them, rather than expending all your energy fighting them. These are ancient Eastern concepts, yet they address the exact anxiety running through the modern Western mindset. The reason we understand them today is largely due to one specific translator. The philosopher Alan Watts looked at the spiritual suffering, loneliness, and obsession with results in the West. Acting as an alchemist of ideas, he translated this wisdom into the language of the modern soul. Watts identified our psychological terror of losing control as a far greater obstacle to effortless action than any geographic or cultural divide. Our modern inability to flow comes down to a psychological terror of surrender. We are terrified to let go. To explain the mechanics of this struggle, Watts asked us to picture a river. This diagram maps that exact scenario. We see a swimmer represented by the geometric figure in the channel, with these bold downward arrows mapping the strong force of the current. Now imagine that person swimming directly against that flow. Every stroke is a frantic, panicky battle. Their muscles burn, and as they push up into the resistance, they waste massive amounts of energy. Watts observed a critical mechanical truth here. The river, which is life itself, is not the enemy. The current is not causing the swimmer's pain. When the swimmer stops resisting, the friction disappears entirely. Our active, relentless resistance to the natural flow of reality is the true and only source of our suffering. We have turned our culture into a neurotic race toward a vague idea of better. It is a destination we relentlessly chase, but never actually arrive at. We worship productivity to the point where we treat our own lives like a corporate project. We are constantly tracking, tweaking, and trying to optimize ourselves. Even when we manage to force outcomes and succeed on the outside, that desperate need for control leaves us entirely disconnected from life. We end up hollow on the inside. Practicing Wu Wei in today's world requires stepping out of that cycle. It is an act of conscious rebellion against the frantic expectations of the outside world. You start by deliberately slowing down. Create a small pause to observe a situation before you react to it. Choose the depth of one meaningful, focused action over a dozen rushed ones. Then you learn to trust the natural cycles of your life. You recognize there are times to act and times to wait. You have to silence the external noise long enough to hear your own intuition. Ernest, significant change doesn't emerge because you force yourself to be different. It emerges when you surrender the need to dictate every outcome, creating the space for life to actually happen. The water is already moving. You can continue exhausting yourself day after day fighting the current, or you can finally let go, trust the flow, and join the dance.